thank you, listeners, for tuning in. I'm Andre, and Shawn is here with me. We spoke last time on Disc Junkie about what did we even talk about? We were talking about album flow.
Sequencing, yeah.
Yes,
Flow
and that was
and
such a fun
sequence.
conversation that I have Shawn with me again, and we're going to do this on a recurring basis. We're starting a new series, I guess you could call it, called Two LPs in a Pod, where we're each going to give each other an album to not really review, but just like talk about, have a conversation about. And the goal is also to have a theme when we recommend albums to each other. So this, I don't know how often we're going to do this, but this episode's theme is emo albums. Shawn, how are you?
I'm doing well, and I'm super excited about this. I really had a good time with our Disc Junkie episode, and I'm happy I was able to talk you into doing something recurring with me. And just talking about albums, and you and I have been recommending music to each other for years, over a decade, I would imagine.
It's been a hot minute.
Yeah. So this is a really nice excuse for us to chat about music. But it's also, I'm going to use this as a way to reevaluate, and I might possibly not approach every album of every episode we do, but especially in this instance, the album I recommended was something that I wanted to reevaluate. It was an album that I wasn't sure how I felt about, and I thought, maybe as we chat through it, we could kind of come to a better understanding of our feelings about it, and also to just hear something new that you recommended to me. Mm-hmm. And I want to kind of preface the conversation with this isn't going to be a comprehensive history of either one of these albums. We have nuts and bolts details about the making of these albums, but if you've come to this for some encyclopedic making of these albums, that's not what this is. It's just like kind of like, hey, did you check out this album? What did you feel about it, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's definitely closer to a review than that, but I'm sure, it's funny because I did pick my album for you. I do like it. I'm not trying to like reevaluate an album that I'm unsure of, because I do actually like that album, but I picked it more so because I think it's just interesting to talk about. Is a bit of a backstory.
Awesome. Well, we'll get into yours first. You want to kick it off and introduce and talk a little bit about why you chose it?
Okay. Why I chose it, I was thinking about, I kind of explained that, but why do I think of it as an emo album? Well, first off, we decided on emo. I think that's just kind of a genre that we have some common ground on. Like you said, we recommended albums to each other a lot. And, so I know that we have some common ground here. And this album came to mind. It's pretty recent. It came out last year, towards the end of last year. So it's not like I haven't heard it in a long time. There's some songs that I go back to pretty frequently. They're on like my gym playlist, so I kind of hear them every now and then. I don't know if I've sat down, other than yesterday, and listened to this whole album probably since like last year, maybe earlier this year. So it's a collab album by 3 artists, Parannoul, Asian Glow, and sonhos, tomam, conta. I believe Parannoul is from South Korea, so is Asian Glow, but the third artist is from Brazil. So 3 artists that collabed, I think, over the internet. I don't really know too many details because this is more of a niche record. Mm-hmm. But it's a great album. I like all the Parannoul tracks are my favorite. I like Parannoul the most. I like sonhos. I don't know if it's a him or a her, but I like their vibe. And then Asian Glow is honestly the artist I like the least, if we're looking at all 3 like individually. But when they come together, it makes like a kind of a cool like a not like a compilation, but like it's just a cool album. And I think like, once you kind of like, instead of an album entirely by Asian Glow that I don't like that much, hear a song here and there, I think it fits the vibe very well.
That's really good insight. And for the listeners, the album title is Downfall of the Neon Youth.
We have an outline we can share with people, and I'm going to include the album in the thumbnail.
Oh, okay, cool.
So yeah, this is important. Thank you.
Yeah, this album is kind of would you call it like a super group? It's funny because it's these, I've never seen anything like this except for then I think, well, is this like a Jefferson Starship or like a Fugazi
no, because they actually
situation?
have a name, right? Like this, they don't have a name for their band. It's just the 3 artists put together.
Exactly. So this is something I'm not sure
They could
I've
become
ever
a super group, I
seen.
guess.
Yeah. And it's from three artists that I've never heard of. So it's this, to me, very obscure album. And when you sent it to me, I literally I've never heard of this album. I've never heard of any of these artists.
That's
And
cool.
it was just a completely blind listen for me. So I spun the album at least two times from front to back. And it's funny, we had our conversation about album flow and sequencing last time, where I told you that I like albums that are 30 minutes long. And this
a little
one
longer, I think.
clocks in a little bit longer than that. But another thing about it is that the songs themselves are very long.
Some of them are, yes.
Let me pull it up because I want to get the right stats here. Downfall of the Neon Youth is 10 songs, 55 minutes and 9 seconds. So it's
chunky,
almost an
it's chunky.
hour long. Yeah, and some of the songs are, as you would imagine,
There's a few 8 minutes.
5, 6, 7, 8
7
minutes
minute.
long. So if you picked this album because you thought it would be like in my wheelhouse, I'm not going to say it wasn't, but it was more challenging to me than I would imagine you would think it was. In fact, on first listen, I didn't really like it. It took me a lot of tries to really get into it. And I found how I liked it the most was when I listened to it kind of ambiently, if that makes sense. Like I put it on during dinner last night at a lower volume as I was eating dinner with my wife. And that's actually when I liked it the most. And I think the production lends itself to that because it is an extremely washed out production.
It is.
And the vocals are
very reverby.
They're super reverby, and I'm guessing they're in a language that I don't understand. But I felt listening to this album that even if they were in my native tongue of the Queen's English, I would still not understand it because of the way the album is produced and the way the vocals are processed. And it's interesting that you classified this as an emo album because I felt it was way more into the shoegaze or even progressive metal genres. But those are two genres that I'm not really an expert on. So, man, this was really an interesting pick for me coming from you. So
it is. I have something to say about your album too when we get there. But it's interesting that we both kind of went in two different directions with the emo, umbrella. Because emo, like, that is a pretty wide umbrella. Like it's hard to say it's its own genre, right? Like it's usually like a personality trait for another genre of music. I almost feel like, and this album is definitely very shoegazy. It's definitely very washed out. That's kind of like the vibe of all of the three individual artists, to be honest. Mm-hmm. Some more interesting background is you're saying that you don't know any of these artists. This is definitely one of those bands, and I would love to like dig into this somehow if I could, but like one of those bands that's all three of them are only popular really like through the internet, through like weirdo communities like on Rate Your Music. Like they don't even it's just two random people from South Korea and then a random person from like Brazil. Like they would never be able to meet each other in real life like without the internet. So they just released music and people online happen to like it, and now I'm not sure, I don't think they're professional musicians, but they're further on their way there than a lot of other people.
Yeah, and to that point, it's a very, we've commented on the production being washed out. It's not washed out in a bad way. It's a very well done album. Like the production quality, if this is like a home, a more homemade type of project, it sounds amazing. Like I don't want to knock it for the production. It's very lush, very dreamy.
Very dreamy, yeah.
It definitely has its own vibe. And for what it's worth, this is you mentioned Rate Your Music. This is an extremely highly rated album, and with
for what that's worth.
Well, I'm not a big user of Rate Your Music. I'm getting more into it thanks to you, but this has
Dude, I love that site.
Those kind of reviews that are like, this album changed my life, this is the best album of all time kind of thing. And I'm sure every album has those kind of reviews under it from some people, but it seems to be very popular, and it seems like it gets into a lot of people's hearts the way it didn't quite get into mine, which is also pretty cool.
It's definitely I think that's like, it has emo tendencies. It's hard to really describe. It's just like a very interesting, it's kind of like like you're saying, like a dreamy kind of lush vibe, but it's like slightly tinged with some melancholy or like some forlornness. It's interesting that you said it's like almost like prog metal. Like, I definitely agree on one of my favorite songs, One May Be Harming. Like, that's a pretty aggressive song. There's definitely like some screaming on there. So there's definitely like a nice emotional mix, and there's no golden rule or like perfect formula, but this kind of album is like the perfect formula for people on RYM to like.
I'm curious if you wouldn't mind digressing with me for 1 second. Do you know the YouTuber Trash Theory?
Not off the top of my head, but let me look him up.
It's a really good music history YouTuber. I'll just give him a shout out here. He came out with a very timely YouTube video for us yesterday. I think it came out, the history of emo, an hour long.
Wow, it's about
an hour long video. Yeah, it was really good. It was like how we got to My Chemical Romance, kind of was his theme.
Dang, I might put that on.
It's funny because I don't know if you've ever seen, there's a copy paste or a copy pasta, as people call them, where somebody wrote somewhere, it was like, true emo is only the emotional hardcore that came out of DC in the mid 80s and blah blah blah. It's kind of this very funny copy paste that people post as soon as you start talking about emo. And if you talk about, I don't know, if you say Paramore was a great emo band, people wig out about it. Oh, that's not real. They're, emo was only the hardcore, only Rites of Spring or some shit like that. So it's funny that we do an emo episode, and this Downfall of the Neon Youth by these like random internet prog metal dudes.
This is pretty sacrilegious, isn't
it? Well, in a way it might be, but I love that kind of stuff because I don't like, I'm not a big gatekeeper, as you know. So I
don't like to be either. That's like
as we talked about in our last conversation, if it pleases you, then that's all that matters. So, I didn't bring that up to gatekeep you or tell you that this is not emo. More to the contrary, I'm telling you, if it's emo to you, then that's fine with me. I just think it's kind of funny that people might click on this thinking they're going to hear about MCR and Fall Out Boy.
That's true. Dude, no,
we're definitely digging a little deeper here.
We're way too, artsy fartsy and hipster for that kind of thing. It's funny that you say that though, because we're going a little off topic. But do you know the metal band Liturgy?
I think I've heard the name, but I don't think I've ever heard their music.
So it's an individual from I believe Brooklyn. And she makes black metal. And one of the things that got her a lot of flack at first is that, I don't know like the whole history, but usually black metal is like people from Europe or something, and there's like this whole background. And metal in general can be very gatekeepy and very I can't think of the right word. Like, they don't care about people listening to their music. It's just like a circle of them, and they don't care who comes in. So this hipster from Brooklyn starts making black metal music that people on RYM that like, and other people like, and everyone's just like, oh, this is like, she's an outsider. Like, she's not allowed to make this music. And I just love when people get pissed off like that. Like, dude, like,
Same.
Your music is on the internet. Like, anyone can listen to it. Anyone can do what they want with it. Anyone can like be inspired by it. Like, who are you to say like, you're not allowed to make this kind of music? Like, if it's coming from a place of genuine appreciation, then like, you gotta chill out.
I love it. It sounds like what I said to you on our last conversation had an impression, because you're speaking my language when you say stuff
I
like that.
I think in certain ways I always believed what you believed.
Yeah, in that sense.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I I don't know how much more I can really say about this. I know I see your favorite tracks here. Colors was one of my favorite tracks, and it ended up.
That's one of the Parannoul ones.
Okay. Maybe I'll have to dig a little. I think I listened to one Asian Glow song, but I might have to check out Parannoul because
I love Parannoul. Parannoul, RYM loves Parannoul too.
Okay. Colors actually made it into my like master good songs playlist that I have on Spotify. So that's no, I have another. I don't know if you have a playlist that is just like you press play and you know you're gonna get something you like.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, so my playlist that is like that, I put colors in it, so that's kind of a high honor. So,
hey, if you take one song away from this album every time we recommend albums like this, then that's a win for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think so. So do you have any?
Cool moving on.
Okay.
What were you about to say?
I was just going to ask if you had any final word on that. Like, would you recommend this album in general to the listeners, or was this just a present for me?
This is an interesting. I feel like as we do this show more and more, we're gonna we already know each other, but we'll continue to learn more about each other. Because the fact that you would say that this is a challenging listen, I can see that, but like I almost have to take a step back and see that. Like, dude, I wasn't lying when I told you that I really like artsy fartsy music. Like, to me, the first thing that comes to mind with this wouldn't be challenging, but it's an hour long. It's very washed out. You can't understand the vocals really. It is definitely challenging if you're not used to this kind of thing, but I think there's a lot to be rewarded with this album. Like, it's a very like kind of specific vibe that mixes like happy and sad. It's 3 different artists, so you're kind of like getting like a buffet style of like different song styles and different progressions. I think it's a great album. I would definitely recommend it. Maybe I'll keep it in mind for the shoegaze genre instead of emo, but I would definitely still recommend it.
Excellent. All right, let's move on to album number 2. I chose Sunny Day Real Estate's second album, which is technically known as LP2, but it is colloquially known as the Pink Album by the fans because the packaging was just completely pink with no liner notes, and it just had tiny little white text of the band's name
on
and
the album
the
cover?
Songs on the back. Yeah.
Oh, wow, I didn't notice that.
Yeah. This album came out in 1995 on Sub Pop Records, and it was produced by Brad Wood. I do have a little bit of a history with Sunny Day Real Estate. They're one of my favorite bands from back in the day, and I still listen to them from time to time. Jeremy Enoch, the singer-songwriter, is definitely one of my favorite vocalists, and one of the points that the Trash Theory video made that I was watching last night, he talked about Sunny Day Real Estate a couple times, and he said that Sunny Day Real Estate with Jeremy Enoch as the singer kind of broke the trend of emo singers not being able to sing, because Enoch is an incredible vocalist and just has a really amazing voice. Now, LP2 was the follow-up to their debut album Diary, which was the first album I heard from Sunny Day Real Estate. And one of the main reasons I picked LP2 to kind of do a deep dive and reevaluate, as I was saying, is that it's my least favorite Sunny Day Real Estate album. And Diary is my most favorite. And their other 2 studio albums, How It Feels to Be Something On, and the other one whose title I can't remember off the top of my head. Rising Tide, thank you very much. I like better than LP2. So I would rank it at the lowest of their like studio albums. And doing a little bit of research here, it came out at kind of a time where the band was breaking up for the first time. Jeremy Enoch had found religion and was going to, from what I understand, just quit the music business, or he ended up going solo. They got back together a few times over the years, but at this point in the band's history, they were breaking up. So a lot of these songs are actually, I don't want to say the scraps. This isn't like a compilation album, but it's almost like, one of those albums a band makes when they're breaking up. And we talked about vocals in Downfall of the Neon Youth and how they're hard to understand. Well, in fact, in LP2, they didn't even finish the lyrics for a lot of the songs. So what you're hearing is actually gibberish.
I think I tried looking up the lyrics to some songs on Genius, and some people in the comments were like, oh, like, it's so hard to understand. Here's like a version that I tried doing. Like, so I saw that. Like, people were having a hard time with the lyrics.
Yep. So, and a few of the tracks are actually either B-sides or rejected tracks from Diary, their first album. And I think on the one hand, that is to this album's detriment, but on the other hand, those are probably the best songs, especially the final song, Rodeo Jones, sounds like it belonged on Diary. There's actually some riffs or some chord progressions that are almost specifically taken from different songs on Diary. So it sounds like it belonged on that album. So rather than being a transitional album between Diary and How It Feels to Be Something On, it was more of like, here's another album that sounds like Diary but not as good, and we're breaking up. Like that's kind of the vibe I get from this album. And truth be told, it's a vibe I've always got from this album, and coming back to it and listening to it, my opinion is not really changing. I'm glad I gave it another shot, but I do want to talk a little bit about the band and the personnel a little bit more, but I've been talking for a long time now. I want to kick it over to you and get your first impressions on this album.
So for me, I vaguely know Sunny Everyday Real Estate. I have like a long laundry list of albums I want to get to. And before we started doing this, Diary was on that list, but I had never listened to them yet. And then you asked me if I knew them. I said, I know of them. And then you recommended this album. So this is my first real exposure to the band. Also, I didn't realize, but you just said Rodeo Jones is the last song. And I noticed that I was listening to this album on Spotify, which is the 2009 edition. And it has 2 extra songs at the end. So for me,
Yes.
So another discussion of album flow. Rodeo Jones was not the last song for me. It's
true.
It's interesting that you would recommend this album knowing you don't like it that much and you want to revisit it. That's another interesting way that you want to use this segment, and I totally am for it. I think we're both not exactly hitting the nail on the head, because I'm not crazy about this album either, to be honest. I don't think it's bad. But it just, to me, it's more like alt rock than emo also. So that's another thing where we're kind of like straying from the emo umbrella.
Fair.
It definitely I wrote some notes here that you might have seen already. It definitely sounds like an album you would like. Like, I can definitely see why you would this band in general. And it kind of reminds me of the Pixies too, which I know you love the Pixies. And it finally also reminds me of those bands. Like, it seems like a band we could have seen at one of those like Clubhouse shows. Like,
I love that comment.
it's like
that is so true.
A very like, not in a bad way at all. It's like endearing. Like, it's a very kind of, not exactly lo-fi, but like it's 90s alt rock. Like it is what it. That's what I encapsulate it as.
Well, I really like the comment that you put about bands we would see at Clubhouse shows, because like my friends and I are very influenced by this band.
That totally makes sense.
It's funny to hear you say that, because it really tracks to our history as musicians, especially our friend Ralph, who you know
Cudley?
From Chudley from
Chudley,
Please Exist and all the other bands that he was in over there. So he was a huge fan of this band, as was my friend Brian back in the day. And I have quite a history with this band. The individual members of this band probably influenced me more than any other band I can think of, besides maybe Sleater-Kinney.
Wow.
Where, like, when I think of Sleater-Kinney, right, it's like Janet is one of the best drummers I know, and like her drumming style really influenced like how I think about playing drums. Carrie's vocals and both of the guitars in that band. Sunny Day Real Estate is kind of the same way. The guitar work is really well done and imaginative, and it's two guitars, and then you have
bass.
You have Nate Mendel on bass, and last and definitely not least is William Goldsmith on drums. And he is one of my favorite drummers of all time. And I stan him to the point where I copied his drum set. What he did, he didn't use crash cymbals. He would use ride cymbals as crash cymbals. So he'd have these massive, like 20 and 24-inch ride cymbals as his crash cymbals. And it gave the whole kit like a deeper... It's hard to describe cymbal. Like, I'm not a technical person, but it gave
changes
it
the timbre
like
a lot.
Exactly. So it just gave his drumming like a lot more heft, and he's been criticized for his technique. It ended up hurting his back and all this other stuff. But I mean, if you listen to, I don't know how you felt about the drumming on this album in particular, but some of the stuff he did on Diary and even on their later albums is just so good. And it's hard to talk about Sunny Day Real Estate and their history without mentioning the Foo Fighters. Nate Mendel, to my knowledge, is still in the Foo Fighters.
Oh, really?
Is he? Like, man, now I got to look this up because I don't listen to the Foo Fighters.
I didn't know that. He's the bassist for the Foo Fighters.
Yeah, and he has been since the beginning.
95,
but in William Goldsmith's case, he was also in the band. He was in some of their early music videos, and he toured with them. However, Dave Grohl did him dirty because he didn't like his drumming on The Color and the Shape, which was the Foo Fighters' second album. So Grohl re-recorded a lot of the drums.
Oh, wow, that's dirty.
I think, William Goldsmith either quit or got kicked out, or it was mutual at the time or whatever. But yeah, William Goldsmith, one of my favorite drummers of all time. And, screw Dave Grohl.
I'm hoping that this discussion will be you like selling the album to me and what I should like listen to more closely on like repeated listens, because I have given it a few listens already. The drumming did not really catch my ear like too much. I like the guitar and I like the progressions and I like the vocals. The drumming didn't stand out to me too much, but I'm going to try and take a closer listen the next time I hear the album.
Well, that's the trouble with this album. As you're saying, you want me to talk you into liking this album. I would rather you go listen to Diary and see what Sunny Day Real Estate really sounds like. You know what I mean?
I see what you're saying.
That's kind of my conclusion here, is that I just like this. It's like a similar not their vibe. Best work. Oh yeah, it's Diary is this album, but 10 times better.
That happens sometimes. That happens in an artist's career.
Exactly.
You know what the saying is? You spend your whole life making your first album, and then you only spend a couple of years making your second album.
It's there's so many bands that peak with their first album, and Sunny Day, although I would say, if there was a gun to my head, they definitely peaked with their first album, but their albums after this are also very strong. So I think this is more like this is just time. Like their only dud in their discography. And it's still not bad, as you said. Like it's totally listenable. It's well recorded. The vocals are amazing. The drumming's great. Like the rhythm set. Like Nate Mendel is a great bassist.
It's a well performed album for sure, and it's definitely not like you could find way worse and like more corny and more generic 90s rock than this for sure.
And the thing that you know about me and the listener should know is that I need something to hook me, like
you like
literal hooks.
But this album is not that hooky, I don't think.
Exactly. That's kind of the thing that both the albums that we're talking about today kind of failed to get truly like really into my heart. Yeah, is that they didn't leave me with anything to remember. I will say though, like when I again, Neon Youth I listened to while I was eating dinner last night, and it was like, okay, I can vibe with this in this circumstance. Well, this morning when I went out for my Sunday morning run, I put on the Pink album, and not a bad album to work out to. Honestly,
I could see that.
I was just kind of enjoying it. It has a good groove, loud guitars, and I liked listening to it while I was running. So I will also add that Jeremy Enoch has a YouTube channel, and he was really big during the pandemic. He put up a lot of videos of himself playing like acoustic versions of all old Sunny Day songs, and really good versions of some of the songs on this album as well as the other albums. So
that's interesting. There's a lot to check out.
Yeah.
Is that it? Do you have any final words for your album?
Yeah, I think, Sunny Day Real Estate is just one of those great bands, and this is their weakest album, but they're one of those bands that like you brought up the Pixies, and I think it's funny, when I try to dig up these obscure quotes out of my head, I think it was maybe Tom York or somebody else like that who said the worst Pixies album is better than most bands' best albums. And I kind of feel that
high praise from Tom York.
Yeah, exactly. But with Sunny Day, it's like, yeah, the Pink album is not Sunny Day's best album. In fact, I think it's their worst album, but it's still better than a lot of bands' best albums, if that makes sense.
I can see that, yeah.
Like, it's still a quality, like, give it like a C+ to a B- kind of rating.
Hey, if I saw this band at the clubhouse, I'd be like, whoa, these guys are insane.
Right. But having said that, I would not recommend this as an entry point to Sunny Day Real Estate. Definitely start with Diary. And it's funny, you talk about internet culture and internet memes. The album cover for Diary, at least at the time of this recording or the last time I was on the r/emo subreddit, the album cover for Diary is the backsplash for that subreddit.
It's a very memeable album cover for sure.
Yeah. So if you want to get into Sunny Day Real Estate, start with Diary and then continue into this one, but then keep going because it gets better again.
All right. Well, I think we've said all we have to say about our two albums. I had one idea. Did you want to decide, like, since we're doing this presumably forever for now, did you want to try to decide what the next genre of album for our next episode will be right here? Or no?
Oh, sure. And it doesn't even have to be a genre. It could be more of
any kind of
a
thing
category.
Like a decade, a location, anything.
Okay. One thing I did a TikTok on, and I saw another good YouTube video last night from, oh my, now I need to shout this person out as well. Hold on. This is one of my favorite music YouTubers besides Trash Theory. Naomi Cannibal. Have you ever seen her on YouTube? Okay. So tell me if you want to do this. One Album Wonders. That is not, does not mean one good album. It just means they have one album,
just like vanished
period.
After that.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man, that's a really good idea. I don't know if I can even think of an album like that off the top of my head, but I can at least start doing some homework.
I bet you can find some. I did a TikTok where I mentioned a bunch of them, so I already have a few in mind that I can. Are you going to
tell me the album that you're going to pick right now, or are you going to?
No. Okay. I got to think about it.
That's a great idea, though.
I want to think about, like, what would you enjoy, or what would I want to hear your thoughts about, rather than just throwing one out.
Wow, this is totally not a genre, but I would have never thought of this, like, umbrella on my own, so thank you.
Sure. Watch Naomi Cannibal's video and maybe you'll get some ideas.
What is that? Because I looked up her channel, but I don't really see a video that specifically talks about that.
The title of the video is One Album Wonders, Label Conflicts, and the Rise of Streaming.
Oh, it's like a month old. I see now. Interesting.
Yeah. One of the examples was SZA Control, which is
Well, she has a new album out now.
oh, did it come out?
It
That's
come out
funny.
on Friday, yeah.
Because she kept saying, I hope I'm wrong about her and that an album comes out. That's so funny.
I would say because like even before this Friday, she's like an active artist. I wouldn't I would think a one album wonder is someone that like for whatever reason disappeared. Like hopefully not that they died, but like they just got tired of music or something or whatever.
We're really digressing here, and we could probably save this for our next episode, but that's the point of the video, is that a lot of artists have converted to just releasing singles every couple of weeks just to stay in the consciousness rather than focusing on an album type project. But yeah, go watch that video and we'll talk more about this
for the next episode. Cool. All right. Well, thank you all for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoy the segment because it's going to keep coming at you forever, as far as I can tell. So yeah, thanks so much. Thanks so much, Shawn, for joining me, for being a part of this. It's great, just great talking to you and staying in touch with you.
Yep, this is rad. Take care, Andre.
Cool.